Welcome to Bound by Books. I am one of your hosts, contemporary and suspense writer Danielle Bannister. I also write under Danny Bannister. And today I am joined by my special guest, Randy Hunt. Randy is a main actor, director, poet, and playwright. Did I get everything?
There's, I'm sure there's more, but yeah, that covers the big ones.
Welcome to Bound by Books. Now, I've asked Randy on here today because we here at Bound by Books, we like to make some space for other authors' perspectives and get their insight onto different topics, things that maybe we can't talk to fully. And I've asked Randy here because we're going to talk about a sort of an interesting topic. But before we get into that, why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about the many hats that you wear?
Sure. I got to take a look at my hat rack and just see which ones I've got hanging up there. Yeah. I am an actor, director, poet, playwright, improviser, and roller derby
Oh,
official,
yes, yes,
which has
yes.
nothing to do with writing or anything like that. But
No.
yeah, I'm an on skates roller derby official. So I started acting about 11 years ago, like 11 years ago this month, and as a almost middle-aged man at the time. And I did a production of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. That was my first big community theater show, and got the bug pretty bad, and have done over 25 fully staged productions in the last 11 years, plus a whole bunch of other smaller various projects. So it's been a lot of theater in my world. I have directed a couple of plays, write poetry, and yeah, there's a lot of I'm a busy guy. Pretty much what it boils down to.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are. Now, I've asked you on to this particular podcast because I wanted to talk about the idea of mixed media collaborations. And I thought that you could speak to that because you and I have worked on a mixed media collaboration. Now, what exactly do I mean by mixed media? I just mean two different sort of mediums that sort of come together. So it could be like a narrator, which is a common one. A narrator combines with an author, and together they create sort of this audiobook. So there are two sort of different professionals that come together to create a body of work. It could be a poet who has, a musician come and put music to the background. So it's just taking two things that are in the same arts, I guess, sort of genre, and putting them together. And so I asked you to write a play for the book that I was writing because I was writing a story about actors and I needed a play for them to rehearse. And I asked you, hey, do you have a play that I might be able to use? And you said, what?
I said I have about 20 10-minute plays, but nothing of any length.
Right.
Uh, and so I sent them all to you and
Yep.
let you read them.
Yep. And
And
I,
then,
yeah, I was going to brainstorm it and I was going to try to make something work. I didn't know how, but I was going to make something work with those 10 little short plays. But then you changed your mind?
yeah, I got thinking that night or the next day how I didn't think that was going to work well for you. I thought that was probably, I mean, not that I don't have faith in your work, but I figured that was probably going to be a big challenge for you, especially given how different those 10 plays are.
Right.
And so I thought, hmm, I've been wanting to write a full length play for a few years and just haven't had the drive and the motivation to do it. And so I thought this is the sign and the time to do it.
Yeah.
And so I messaged you back and I said, "Hey, why not I just write one for you?"
Okay.
Because, it's like going to get groceries. You just write a list and you go do it.
And you
And
go do it. Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
it's not quite that easy with writing a
Right.
play,
No,
but
no.
I made
It,
it
it did
seem
take
like
us a
that at
few
first.
years. This wasn't something that just, we whipped out. It was I had just started outlining the project and, you hadn't started. So obviously this took some time and it took some effort and some collaboration, but it's something that authors could be thinking about when they're writing their own stories, is like, are there any sorts of other creative types that I could collaborate with? Maybe I know an artist friend who could create a cover for me, who's, a really good artist. Or maybe I have a musician who could write a song that lives in so it's a way for authors to sort of think outside of the box and collaborate a little bit with, and maybe something that they're not an expert in but could work with somebody else. And then you've got the benefit of sort of that cross promotion stuff, so you're tapping not only your readers, but you're tapping the people that are on the other side of that correct creative end, and you might gain a few new readers there, and they might gain a few new people that are interested in their art now. So it's something that I think authors should look into a little bit and see what friends they might have that they that they could
And
tap creatively.
maybe you can find something that's really unique. Like, I don't think that there are too many collaborations like what we have done
Not
out
that
there,
I've
and
heard of. I
I
mean,
could be wrong,
right.
but
It's kind of,
taking a
yeah.
play and mixing it with a book, a piece of fiction, and having it all kind of work together, I think is a pretty unique thing.
And it was a big jump for both of us. I mean, we both had to be like really collaborative and make sure that we each had our creative freedom. So that's, I guess, something that you would want to consider if you were going to do something like this, is that you've got to figure out whose voice are you listening to? Are you making sure both styles are heard, and who's compromising on what? So it's an exciting opportunity, and it can be a challenging one as well. And I know that for you, that I sort of put some restrictions on you for this play that I needed, because I didn't just need a play. I needed, you know, a play that had characters in their 30s, because that's where my story was going to go. And I needed the male and female character to share an on-screen kiss, because that was sort of where my plot was. But I think those are the only restrictions. But even still, I've limited you now. Now you have to have a romance in this particular play, and they have to be a certain age. Did that, was that something that hindered you, or was that something like game on?
No, but I mean, that might have been part of one of the reasons why I thought that maybe those 10 short plays would not work for you, because I think there was just too much of what you were trying to get accomplished that I didn't think would work well with that. So, but trying to write something romantic was a little outside the norm for me.
Right.
I don't think it was a difficult thing to do. It's just not something typical of what I do for work. I write a lot of comedies, probably 90% comedies,
Yeah.
and a little bit of drama. And this play is a full on drama
Yeah.
with some funny sprinkled
Yes.
in, because
Yes.
you can't just do 2 hours of
Right. You need
heavy
comic relief
stuff.
even in the heavy
Yeah.
stuff, for sure. And I thought that that was very interesting, because I did assume that when you were writing this, it was going to be a comedy, which, I'm writing a light, sort of rom-com. So, I thought maybe like a comedy of errors sort of play or something. But what you ended up delivering ended up working so much better for what my theme and of the story was. I was able to sort of pull from the themes of your play into the themes of my character, of what my character was going through. So I was able to bring a little of the heavy to the rom-com part, and sort of balance that out a little bit, I think. So it's funny how the expectations weren't what we thought they might be, but it, I think, turned out to be pretty good.
I think so too, and it was a lot of give and take there. It wasn't just
Yeah.
me feeding you things that would work for yours. You were feeding me stuff that helped my side of things too, because some of the romance stuff I I didn't know what I was going to do. Um,
Right.
but you wanted at least one steamy scene, and I think I
You
gave you
did.
something to work with.
Yo, dad. And that's sort of the challenge too, right? I mean, if you're going to collaborate with somebody else, you're also taking that opportunity to start learning about something that's outside of your norm. And that sort of helps feed your creativity in projects later on. It helps you learn a little bit more about a medium that you maybe didn't know before. You're getting an education that maybe you can then put into another project down the line. So it's all sort of an investment in your career. You might not get the same like turnaround times that you're used to because you're not just working on your own schedule. You're now collaborating with somebody else, and art and creativity takes time to do, and it depends on the medium. So you can't, expect your other creative partner to be able to work on your schedule. So I would say if you're planning something like this, to just take that into consideration when you're planning, that maybe have a flexible release day versus something set in stone, so that that creative muse can can be loosey goosey as she likes to be sometimes.
Yeah,
Did you
I think this was I think this is just about 3 years. We're coming up on 3 years because it
Yeah,
was the end of December 2019
right.
when this conversation happened before the
But
pandemic.
some of that was my fault though too. I
Yeah,
sort of started changing when I wanted to release things because I had to sort of change my schedule around for certain things. Certain projects needed to take
right.
priority,
Yeah,
and you were
it wasn't a
right,
cramped tight 3 years
right,
for
right,
sure.
right,
But
right.
it also gave me the flexibility to do some test readings with some groups, have them give me some feedback, do a whole bunch of rewrites, read it with them again, get their feedback again, cut out whole scenes because they didn't like it, or add stuff in because they thought that it needed it. And that takes time.
Yeah.
So the fact that your schedule had to change a little bit somewhere in the middle there worked out well for me because it took a little bit of pressure off of me from having to get that done on a hard deadline.
Yeah, hard deadlines are tricky no matter what, sort of creative passion that you're following. It can sometimes scare the muse away and whatnot. But I did feel from the very beginning that we just both decided, when it's ready to come out, it will come out, and we'll take all the time we need. If you had said, prior to me setting a release date, mind you, if you had said to me, you know what, I really need another pass through of this script, can we, have another month or two? I would have been like, yeah, sure, I'll move things around. So collaboration is very much dependent on being flexible with people and what they need, for sure.
Well, especially when you have two very busy people. So
Yeah, exactly, exactly. You're trying to line up schedules. When do I have time to work with this person? When are they going to be free? And I feel like I have to lift up. Not only did you lend your hand to the script for this, but I was also able to, because you put it in your script, some of your poetry as well. So we've got a play and poetry in a novel. How was that experience for you, putting your own poetry into this play? Because you had written the poems first, right?
right, yeah.
And
Yeah,
then you inserted them, yeah?
yeah. So yeah, you talk about mixed media. So here we're throwing another thing into the
Yeah.
works. And that was not anything I'd planned. It just kind of happened organically that, to drive the romance part of it, I thought, well, I write a lot of poetry. Most of it is love based, not love
Right.
based, romance type of stuff.
Sentimental.
Sentimental. I used that to say, I need these romantic moments to happen in the book. Maybe there's something I can use from my poetry to help that character move his process along, if you will. I picked out 3 short poems. They were so I write micro poetry is mostly what I do, and micro poetry is poems that fit inside of a tweet, which are 280 characters. When I first started doing it, it was 140 characters. So they were very short and succinct, and now they're a little less short and still succinct. But you'd be surprised what you can do with 280 characters.
Sure, sure.
You certainly have to get clever with how you word things and how you space things and
It's a
all that stuff.
great
So
it's a great writing exercise. I mean, flash
yeah,
fiction is sort of the same way. If you've given yourself a word count that you've got to convey something within 50 words or something, you'd be surprised how quickly it teaches you economy of words and so forth. And you, correct me if I'm wrong, you also, I don't know if it's still active, but for a while there, you had a Twitter account for the character in the play, yes?
There is still a Twitter account for
Is
the
there
character in my
really?
play.
I haven't looked
Yes.
recently. That's awesome. See,
Yeah.
this is the kind of
So
meta stuff that's so fun that you can do and play with, right?
so it's one of those things that I thought, if he's going to write this and it's happening in my world on my Twitter account, maybe I can time this out to have him tweet. So it's all under his name. It was kind of a little Easter egg thing. So your listeners are kind of getting a little sneak peek into how my brain works. But in real time, based on when my character is released from prison, which is how my play starts, kind of through this romance that happens, including these three poems that come into play during the play and in your book, they are all in real time based on his life at that time. So at poet Nick Wells,
I was going
if
to
you want
ask
to
if you
go,
wanted to give that information
yeah,
out. I wasn't sure if you wanted to
at poet Nick Wells,
divulge
yeah.
that.
And if you want to look at my stuff, it's at micro poet Randy. So
Perfect little plug right
there's
there.
that. Yeah,
I love that. I think that's such a fun way to sort of market stuff as well. I mean, you could totally, if you were starting to, market your play and you wanted to get some interest in, you could be like tweeting, things out and then sharing it on your Facebook. And, you can be creative like that, right? And, you're promoting the play, but you're using poetry to do it, So there's lots of ways that you can sort of play with different mediums that maybe you're not an expert in. I am no poet. I've only written a couple of poems in my lifetime, but you could tap a poet that you might know or find a friend or shop around for, there are poets everywhere. Find somebody that might be able to work with you. Because the reason I wanted to use an actual script in the play was not your entire play is not in this book. It's not a complete start to finish. There are just chunks of what they're rehearsing and talking about. And so there were threads of it in there. And I wanted to have something that was original. I didn't want them rehearsing, something that I didn't want them rehearsing Romeo and Juliet. I've done that. I don't need to do that again. I wanted, and I didn't want, copyright infringement. And so I wanted to find some sort of person who might have been crazy enough to want to sort of collaborate with this. And so you do have to kind of think about those types of things in terms of, you can't just pick a song that you want to use that you hear on the radio and throw it
right,
in your book. That's not how it works. You have to
right.
have, the express written consent of, the artist, so on and so forth. So, but it's a fun way to sort of play with whatever creative path that you're on. That could be writing, it could be whatever, right? I mean, so just something fun to think about. I did want to say that something that sort of, I guess, excited me about writing this book was that collaborating with another artist, because writing is a very lonely and cave like sort of process. You have no feedback really until it goes to an editor, and then they're usually just shredding your work and making you feel like garbage because you forgot how to use the right your, and you're like, I know how to use the word your, I don't believe I spelled it wrong. So you don't really get the feedback to know, are you on the right track, are you doing things in the right way? Talk to me a little bit about what that process was for you to have somebody to sort of collaborate with, because I helped, I was reading drafts of your play, you were reading drafts of my novel. We were both sort of giving each other feedback to make sure that we were both able to lift the other project up. Talk to me a little bit about how that collaboration was for you.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. So we when I came out with the first draft, I I think I did it in scenes. I think I sent you scenes as I was doing it, and you're like, oh, 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 and I'm like, are those good O's or not? Uh, and you gave me a lot. You gave me so much feedback that was so helpful. Things that I didn't think of. When you write a 10-minute play, it's very, very different process
Yeah,
than writing a
sure,
full length play,
sure.
and that's what I had to learn. A lot of times with my 10-minute plays, it's um, I sit down and I write it and it's done, and
Yeah.
I only go back if somebody says, "Hey, you did your instead of your with whatever."
Right. For you,
And
it's.
I yes, it's is my problem exactly. So it, it's it was nice to have that kind of two-way street because you were also writing chapters and
Mhm.
sending them to me, and I'm just like, give me more. And so I finished my first draft about 2 months into it, so it was like the end of February, so it was just like weeks before the
Right.
pandemic. And uh, you came along with your red pen, your e-red pen, and really gave me a lot of feedback on, well, this doesn't make sense, or you said this here, but you said this completely different thing here that doesn't make any sense, or you corrected my its errors, um, or
Hey,
or
I don't
even
I
you
don't
even
know many grammatical rules. That one I know. Let me have that
but
one.
but you also uh honestly, you came up with probably more than a few lines of dialogue to help me in my script as well. So you've definitely helped in places where I didn't feel as comfortable being able to fix an issue that I had. So uh that was awesome. And kind of the other way around for you, you were sending me your stuff, I was reading it and giving you feedback, and helping you proofread along the way.
Oh my God. Poor Randy gets to see my early drafts, which are sometimes little more than word vomit. I just tend to write and don't really think so much about, spelling at all. And so I put you through the ringer. There's a reason I hire an editor. I come up with the ideas, but sometimes the words are wrong. All right, they're just wrong. I make a valiant attempt. Spell check normally knows what I'm trying to say. It's just not something that happens in that first draft. That's later drafts that I look
that
at
was
all of
that was
that.
fine for me because I love proofreading. I do a lot of it at work and stuff like that, so I love getting my red pen out.
Right.
That's that's a fun challenge, and hopefully made your editor's life a little bit easier
Well, she still had all of
with the
my
final
stuff that
copy.
she had to fix. So, there's always something. Every time I think I send my editor, she's not going to find nothing. She always finds hundreds of things that I've done wrong. So I will continue to pay her. I did want to ask you about with screenwriting versus writing a novel, and you've never written a novel, so you can't really, I guess, speak to that part. But with a novel, you're able to, you have your dialogue, your characters are speaking, but you can also have sort of their internal monologues, and you can process what they're thinking, but they don't say. And you can use that to your advantage and all of that. In writing a play, is that challenging for you where you have to convey all of the emotion in what they're saying? Because typically plays don't give a lot of like direction in terms of like what the character's doing. The character puts his hands in his head, whatever it is, because that's sort of a directorial choice. The playwright's job is sort of to just put the words on the page. Was that challenging for you to only have the words to communicate what you needed?
Yeah, I don't think it was too bad. I don't think I had much of a struggle with it. I don't think it was too difficult for me. I there were a few times when and I did get some feedback during our readings that that I'm uh telling thing I'm having my characters say things that happened before just for the sake of filling the audience in. And exposition is what we call
Right,
that.
right.
And so there's a couple little moments where I did that, but there's a whole bunch that I took out because of feedback that I got. So yeah, you have to be super careful
Yeah,
with exposition in the theater world and with plays, because audiences sense it.
yeah,
They know
yeah.
when somebody's going just telling you just so you're
Right,
filled
right,
in, and
right.
that kind of helps. It hinders the illusion of what's happening in front of
Yeah,
them.
yeah.
And so yeah, so I had to avoid that, but I think for the most part, I after all the edits, I think in its state now, it probably isn't too bad.
Right, right. And I guess one of the other things that I wanted to talk to you about, and you might have forgotten about this, but
I don't forget anything. I don't know what you're talking about.
you and I both don't have the best memories.
I know I don't. That's for sure.
And we both have to write things down a lot. I and I think I have come up with a reason why that is, I think it dawned on me. The reason we do not have good memories is because we are also performers. We are demanded of having a short-term memory to learn things for a very short window and then throwing it away. And so we're just trained to learn something for a little bit and then throw it away. And so that's why we have memory problems. We've just been trained to memorize that way.
Sure,
So
we'll
we'll
go with
go with
that.
that. Did
We'll go with
Was
that.
there ever a point in the project that you were like, "Oh God, what did I say that I was going to do?"
Oh,
Or,
constantly, constantly, constantly. I my whole life depends on everything Google. So anytime that I thought of something, I had to open my phone up and make a quick note of it, or something like to that effect, and or write it down on a piece of paper. But I don't usually write down on paper anymore. Who
oh
does
well,
that anymore?
I do.
Oh, you
I
right.
do. I do. I do. I still have a paper splitter. I'm old school. Now, I did notice in your script, you did take a lot of notes within your script. You would like put like dates of this happened on this date. Is that something that is typical of a play when it's in the revision process of, finish the draft, whatever. You had like a list of sort of dates. Is that a normal sort of playwright thing, or is that a Randy, I have memory issue problem and I need to write this stuff down or I'm never going to
Yeah,
remember
I
it?
think it was just a way of me to keep track of where
I thought
things
it was interesting.
happened.
I'm like, that's a
Yeah.
kind of a cool
And I
idea.
actually
I
put
don't
that
do
on
that. I
my
should
I
do
think
that.
I put that on my website
Uh,
for the book or for the play. Um because I figured somebody might find that interesting.
yeah.
Some people might go, it took you 2 months to write your first draft.
It
Yeah, it
takes
took me
a
2 months to
long
write my first
time
draft.
because it's a full act play. It's two acts.
Yeah. And
Is it two
I
or is
actually
it
did a lot
three?
of my writing. I did probably 60% of my writing at my local library because I just needed to get out of my house and somewhere really quiet. And I'm thankfully have a gorgeous library down the road, just not too far from me, and they have nice leather chairs to sit in, and it's a big wooden high ceiling, and it's just gorgeous and quiet. And so I did a lot of my writing there, and it was lovely.
Here's another possibility for sort of some cross promotion. You go to that library and you say, "Hey, I actually wrote this script in this library in this spot. Would you shelve a copy of?" You know what I mean? Like you could do stuff like that. You can think outside of your creative boxes and,
Guess
maybe you're not.
guess what I guess what I have in one of my Google Docs.
What do you have on one of your Google Docs?
Visit my library to do just that.
See?
And take along a copy of your book.
Well, you could do that. Yeah, that's kind of a fun thing. And who knows, the library may like, "Oh, that's a fun idea. We want
Yeah.
to talk to you guys about." I mean, you never know what opportunities are available until you start. And when you collaborate with somebody, it's opening all these ideas that maybe you hadn't thought of before on your own in your own little shell. So I mean, there are some cons, the time management piece, you've got to collaborate, which, some people might not be okay with that, but there are a lot of pros that you can associate with it as well. Has there been anything about this process that you're like, you know what? I would absolutely do this again because, or on the flip side, never again because XYZ.
I think just the time commitment was kind of a big thing,
Yeah.
and being such a busy person. Um, the pandemic kind of helped in that sense because yes, I wrote the first draft and finished it just before the pandemic, but there was a whole lot of work that I had to do after that, all the revisions and test reads and so the pandemic, I had nothing else to do. I'm a single guy in a 750 square foot apartment. So I was quite alone for a very long chunk of time,
Yeah.
working from home. And so uh, that that was helpful in the process to me. And
Yeah.
now that we can get out and kind of do things,
Right.
I think it might be a little trickier. Not to say that I wouldn't do it. I would
Right.
absolutely, if you asked me to do this again, I would totally do this again with you. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, and that's the other piece too, is trying to find people that you like and you want to work with. That plays a really big part of it for sure. Has it been weird for you to talk about your, very serious play and how it's connected to this, romance?
Oh my God, trying to explain what we did is it's so difficult.
Yeah.
It's not easy to
No.
explain what we did.
Which is
And
what I think is so cool about it.
and I think if people read your book, and I think if people read or saw my play, they'd go, "Oh,
I get it now. It
yeah."
makes sense.
I think if people read your book, they'll get it. They'll understand what happened
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
So, um, I love your book, by the way. I think
He
it
has
came
to
out
say
great.
that. He has to
I
say
don't,
that.
I don't have to say that, but I'm gonna say it's a great book. It really is.
Well, it was made great by a great play that my characters could rehearse and have fun with. I am curious though, has anybody have you put it out there to be produced, your script? Has there been any interest in it? Or are you keeping it close to the breast? What's the deal with it?
Yeah. So I've sent it to probably, I don't know, maybe 6 or 7 play festivals around the country. And some of those play festivals take, upwards of a year or so before you hear back about anything. And so there's some that I heard back,
Yeah.
uh, thanks, but we're going with another
Yeah.
option. Or,
That's
there's a lot of that
that's
where
the way it
sometimes,
goes.
or a lot of times you just
No.
don't hear anything at all.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Which,
for
so
sure.
there's a spreadsheet to track those.
Of course there
Um,
is. Of course there is.
and there's a few bigger ones that are more regional that I have a little more hope for. So there's like some New England based stuff that will only accept New England based
Yeah,
writers, which helps narrow the field down just a
it
little
does.
bit. So it gives
It
me a
does.
little bit more hope.
Right, right.
Um, but the big news is yeah. So I had put it out to my home theater, what I call my home theater because I just
Right.
done so many shows there. Schoolhouse Arts Center in Standish, Maine. Uh, Cute little. It's not even little. It's a cute space. It's a former schoolhouse that has been turned into a really lovely uh, theater space. And I proposed this, and they said, yeah, yeah, I think we can do this in our black box stage, which is up on the second floor. And it's a
That would be
smaller
a good space for it too.
50
Yeah.
space, 50 seat space. And I went, oh yeah, that that's great. And then, mid-September this year, I got the artistic director pulled me aside while I was at rehearsals for something else. He said, we're going to put this on the main stage next
Yes.
year. And it's going to be for one weekend. which normally most of their shows run 2 or 3 weekends. Right. And it's going to be 4 performances, but I am 100% thrilled with that. Like, to see this actually happen is there's nothing like it. When you see your plays performed for the first time, you're in goosebumps the whole time.
So exciting.
I'm really excited about it. So by the time this gets pushed out into the world, that announcement will have been formally made. It has not happened right now, so
right.
I could talk about it on this podcast. You can talk about it
because it hasn't happened yet. That is awesome. I am so thrilled for you. And if somebody wanted to read the actual play, can they? Or is it?
Yeah, so I am part of a website called the New Play Exchange, or NPX, and most of my plays are out there. A good chunk of them, including this play. Inside Man is the name of it, and it is a pay service. It's a pay website. But for a reader, someone who just wants to go out and read plays, it's $10 a year. It's pretty.
Yeah.
It's like buying a book, but you buy
You're buying lots of
one
scripts.
book, and you've got thousands of scripts that you can read.
And who knows, if there's an author out there who wants to do a collaboration like this, maybe they'll find a script on there that'd be like, hey, I wonder if this person would be down to do something like, we did.
Exactly. So that, you put a lot of keywords and stuff, so people will find you in searches and stuff like that. So I've had some of my other plays picked up from theaters who were doing readings or things like that, and like during the pandemic, I became part of a group because they had contacted me to say, hey, we found your play on NPX, we'd like to read it, we're reading it on Friday, would you like to join us on Zoom? And I said sure. And now for the last 2 years, I've been joining them for their monthly readings, which is awesome. I have a whole new group of friends out there.
That's awesome. Because that's what you need. You need a bigger circle. You have got so many. You have so many people. You're out there.
I'm a people person.
You are.
Which is why the pandemic was really rough on me.
Yeah. See, I was in seventh heaven. I was like, oh, no people. I don't have to go out. Oh, this is awesome. This is the best ever. I love this. I love this. Well, I think that might about do it for us. I hope that this might have inspired people to think about, what sort of mixed media collaboration they might be inclined to try. And you know what? You can check out my book, Waiting in the Wings, when it drops on November 15th to kind of see how I did it. Maybe it'll give you some ideas on, how you might try to do something as well. Always trying to give authors some new stuff to chew on and ideas. I thank you, Randy. I know you're a very busy man, and I want to make sure that you get back to your very busy schedule. Thank you so much for hanging out with us today on Bound by Books. And everyone else, I hope that we'll see you next time. Bye.
Wait! Before you go, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and check us out on our website, boundbybookspodcast.com.